coming up on show 680. All right, let's finally talk about it. Those self-charging free energy ads have been ruled illegal. Plus, the Porsche Taycan Turbo gets a better range when the journalists get to drive it. Ferrari's EV plans revealed. Amazon and DHL are supporting a new alliance, and how to get cheap EVs through your job. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily for Tuesday, 28th of January. It's Martyn Lee here, and I go through every EV story that I can find to save you time. Thanks to myev.com for helping make the show, and thank you to myev.com for putting on the biggest EV meetup on the East Coast. It's happening in Miami on Saturday, the 8th of February. It's at Base Camp. Want to go? Want to take your EV? Fancy a road trip to Miami? Yeah, I thought you did, actually. I've only been to Miami once. It rained the whole 3 days I was there. Not just Miami rain, from the locals that were telling me normally it will downpour for, an hour max, and then the sun comes out again. No. It rained for 3 days last year. Brilliant. So I'm looking forward to going back to Miami, where myev.com is based. I want to go see my buddies there and catch up with them in person. It's always better when you're in person, isn't it? And I won't be there for EVs and Tea, though, which is the big meetup. You can find out more at evsandtea.com. Welcome to a new Patreon executive producer, and that's you, Stephen Penn. And Stephen with a PH, and Penn with a double N. Patreon executive producer Stephen Penn is now added to the list of names that I publish at the end of every show on your show notes for this podcast. All right, let's do it. Yes, I have had maybe several, is an understatement, emails about this from people saying, come on, Martyn, when are you going to talk about this story? It's several days old. All right, well, look, I did put it off because I wanted to do my research. Toyota and Lexus have only gone and got themselves in trouble for some misleading ads. Toyota and Lexus repeatedly advertise their hybrid models as self-charging. You may know that, and you may know, regular listeners, I'm not a very big fan of that phrase because there's no such thing as magically self-charging a car. Look, they do regen through braking some energy to the tiny little tiddly battery in their hybrids. But that's like saying that a Tesla is a self-charging electric car. All EVs that have regen can recuperate energy. Heck, you don't say that Formula One cars are self-charging, but they are. They've got heat energy recovery. They've got kinetic energy recovery. No one calls them self-charging. They travel on stinky fumes, like all Toyota and Lexus hybrids without a plug socket. And so what I don't like is what I think is this mischievous way of advertising and marketing their cars, which I don't think is very proper. They, of course, would respectfully disagree. Norway has decided that they have come down on the side of, well, you and I, if you and I do think the same. They've said, look, enough's enough. Norway, the world's capital of EVs. Norway, where half of all new car sales are EVs. Norway, that's gone EV before everyone else. Norway, where they know more about EVs than anyone else in the world. Norway is the country that drives EVs. Norway has banned misleading car commercials. It says electrive, the Norwegian Consumer Protection Agency, has officially banned commercials that deem it misleading to say a hybrid battery is free to charge, since the electricity produced by the car has a consumption of gasoline as a necessary condition. Nothing wrong with the technology. They're not saying the same as I don't. I don't have any problem with Toyota's technology. It's old and it's a bit lame these days, and anyone can make an old soft hybrid 48-volt system or a little kind of hybrid that recovers some energy. I mean, yeah, well done. They did it with the Prius. They did it early doors, and they haven't moved on very, very much. But it's okay tech. It's fine. It's just not a reason to run ads that say it's better than not plugging in. They run ads with cobwebs on car chargers. They run ads with somebody stranded in the middle of the desert, staring at their watch, waiting to fill up their EV next to some charging station. Self-charging is another way to say gas-electric hybrid powertrain, and it doesn't mean Toyota has developed some kind of perpetual motion machine, says the Norway Consumer Agency, the country's independent consumer authority, a supervisory agency that prevents and stops illegal marketing. They've said the Lexus and Toyota ads are misleading and give the impression that the hybrid is somehow getting its power for free. That's the take from Car and Driver website. Car and Driver say the country's consumer authority calling the ad a pure lie. That's because just calling a hybrid self-charging doesn't change the underlying technology. Self-charging is another way to say gas-electric hybrid powertrain. And it doesn't mean perpetual motion. In a video ad that was posted by Lexus UK, the company said twice in the 30 seconds that the hybrid charges itself, claiming that not needing a plug is a small detail for those who see the bigger picture, was their quote. Well, the Consumer Authority made its determination on the misleading nature of the ads after receiving complaints about the phrase, including one from an actual Lexus owner who saw the ad, bought the car. Actually, I don't know if he saw the ad, but he bought the car and said that he realised he's now paying for that lie every time he fills up his tank. It's particularly rough in Norway, where it's the per capita leader in electric vehicles. More than half of all new cars sold there last year came with a plug. Well, from the Quartz website, Quartz chime in on this as well. It wouldn't be the first time Toyota has found itself in trouble with Norwegian authorities. In 2017, the government cited the company for misleading buyers by claiming its hybrid cars run in electric mode up to 60% of the time. In fact, officials found the actual electric driving time under real-world conditions no more than about half. I get Ubers and Prius cabs all the time in London. Hey, look, the latest generation Prius, it's a nice car. I got nothing against the cars or Toyota or Lexus. They're well put together. They're quite nice cars. But in my experience, you ain't running on electric power very much. Motoring research website says complaints about adverts in magazines reference the claim that the car could charge itself without a cost to the driver. One of the ads, if you just run it through a translation engine into English, says, in hybrid form, Lexus, the power always costs nothing. Well, the Norway decision contrasts with an earlier ruling by the UK's ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority. They ruled a long time ago that Lexus self-charging hybrids aren't misleading, and no matter how many more hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of complaints they've had since this ruling, which was done a long time ago, they refuse to reopen the case. And whenever people write to them and complain and say, look, I feel it's misleading, I feel misled. And I know plenty of people that have written to the ASA to say, look, I feel misled. It's not self-charging. You have to put petrol into the car. They get a stock reply to say, look, we ruled on this ages ago. We're not changing our mind. The country's Marketing Act prohibits false, misleading or unreasonable claims in advertisements. And aspects of the self-charging claim in Norway fall under that. Authorities concluded there that Lexus's ads could lead to customers believing their car generates some sort of free electricity. It claims that marketing content could have influenced customers to buy the car. And it's a false claim. And they can do it no more. They cannot say that it's free electricity. Well, one of the things that you should bear in mind, in this country at least, of all the many people complaining to the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, they're actually a self-regulatory organisation. And they are the organisation of the advertising industry. The ASA is a non-statutory body. They can't interpret or enforce legislation, as it were. Their code of advertising broadly reflects legislation, but they're not a government agency. The ASA isn't funded by the government. The ASA is funded by the advertising industry. So as much as I would encourage you to write and complain and say, look at what Norway's done. Please reopen the case. They're not going to. Because they're funded by the advertisers. So I don't know how incentivized they are to come down really hard. I'm sure they're a fine group of people with high moral standards and they do abide by their own code of practice. But they're not a government body. Isn't it a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas? Are they really going to go around upsetting the advertising industry? I don't know much about them. I would love to find out more, and I would invite them onto this podcast anytime to find out what they do and about their work and ask them some open and honest questions, maybe hard questions as well, about why they refuse to reopen this case when Norway, the home of EVs, says you can't do it anymore. You've got to stop. Okay, let's move on. Well, Tom at Inside EVs is a fan of the Porsche Taycan. He likes it, and pretty much during every review of the Porsche Taycan, including their own at Inside EVs, has been very positive. It's been called everything from the best electric car today to the best new Porsche you can buy, and it probably is actually. Says on InsideEVs.com, the Taycan Turbo and Taycan Turbo S, with their 93.4 and 83.7 kilowatts, or 93.4 kilowatt hour battery, but with 83.7 usable. They basically hold back 10 kilowatt hours as a buffer. Maybe that's a bit at the top, bit at the bottom. It protects the battery, the depth of discharge, because when lithium-ion batteries go very, very low, if you go to zero, they can harm the battery. So it's extending the life of your car. When the EPA announced the range for the Taycan Turbo at 201 miles and the Turbo S at 192 miles, it was a disappointment to Porsche. Even with the cold weather and the rain, when they went on a test drive, all the journalists in the US got to drive the Porsche this week, you see. They averaged 2.96 miles per kilowatt hour over the trip. Multiply that by the consumption rate, and they came up with a real-world range of 248 rather than 201. Still not, it's not amazing. Like the Model S gets 307, or what is it now? Because it changed, didn't it? Is it 381, 380, 381 for the Model S now? What's the top one? Of course, the Cybertruck is coming, and that's promising 500 miles of range, and Tesla technology. They're really working hard on that battery. So, it's not stellar, but it's certainly a lot better than the EPA rating. Okay, another performance car is next, and Ferrari's CEO said late last year not to expect a Ferrari EV before 2025. Doesn't mean the engineers at Maranello aren't working on it, though, says MotorAuthority.com. A patent application filed by Ferrari with the European Patent Office has been uncovered. One application is for the modular motor to be used on a front axle of a Ferrari, suggesting that, well, given that they're rear-wheel drive cars, it would be a plug-in hybrid. Ferrari has gone down this route with the SF90 Stradale, which features two of its three electric motors on the front axle. Energy company EDF has signed a deal with the Royal Mail to provision the electric vehicle chargers that the Royal Mail need to continue their electrification commitment, says Current News website. The 3-year framework will see EDF providing charging points, maintenance and ancillary services like signs and bollards and wheel stops. Chargers are going to be installed on Royal Mail sites in the southeast of England, and will increase it if it's required, so the Royal Mail can do more to buy electric vans to deliver our letters and parcels. Nice and quiet, and also emissions-free. Well, sustainability non-profit organisation Ceres has launched the Corporate Electric Vehicle Alliance to accelerate EV development. Amazon and DHL are amongst some of the major companies already joining up in a bid to expand the EV market and improve the policy thinking around this. The Corporate EV Alliance will boost EV sales eventually by increasing the market, signalling the breadth and scale of corporate demand for EVs, and a platform to coordinate support, they say, for corporate companies to get together and electrify. And finally, drivers could find themselves better off in the new financial year in this country by taking on an EV under the government's salary sacrifice scheme, says Regit Cars. The legislation's been around since 2016, ensuring ULEVs, ultra-low emission vehicles, were made as affordable as possible. Electric cars are, of course, low emission. They're zero emission. And you can swap some of your salary in return for a car. It's a scheme operated by employers, now renamed, they've given it a new name, by the way. It's called the Optional Remuneration Arrangement. And tax benefits have mostly been removed for fossil-gobbling cars, but they've left those benefits in place for EVs. The net result is that if your employer offered a salary sacrifice scheme to have a car, you could save as much as £300 a month by getting an EV through them. Can include insurance, breakdown cover and maintenance, and savings could be even greater if you lease a new vehicle through your workplace scheme. So let's talk about question of the week this week, and it's a bit self-indulgent. I'm asking you for some help this week. If I could change one thing in 2020 with EV News Daily, what would it be? Would I add something, not do something? do something differently? Let me know. Email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Leave a comment on social and YouTube. There are 231 patrons of the podcast, and thanks to you, I get to make this show for the thousands of people that listen around the world every day. There are 679 shows in the archive, and for those that use Apple Podcasts, don't know if you get a chance to do this. If you're on the app on your phone or tablet, or even on the desktop site, if you're on Apple Podcasts, used to be called iTunes, and you can, on this podcast, leave a review, like a star rating, which is useful. But what really, really helps is the review. It can be like, this podcast is okay, or one word, like thumbs up. Or you can write a few more words if you want to. But if you could leave a review, it really, really, really helps me grow this show and for other people to discover it as well. Well, if you want to catch up on the socials, search EV News Daily. Oh, a quick mention, by the way, to my premium partners on Patreon. Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby and Avid Technology, and hopefully in the next week or two, another name to add to the list. I'm dead excited about this. Okay, have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, the Norwegians agree there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.